I'm the assistant front office manager at the Hyatt. I have been here for just over 2 years.
And how long have you been with Hyatt?
Just over 2 years. This is my first Hyatt property.
And how did we find you?
I actually found you through a recruiter of Hyatt, Brooke Ludke. I was in contact with her through my old property, which was the Hilton, and she sought me out through the university that I was going to, and I worked closely with her, and she brought your property to my attention.
And so, where were you? Where did Brooke find you? Or
I was working
Florida?
In Florida,
Okay.
Tallahassee, Florida. I was working for the DoubleTree, which is a Hilton property in Tallahassee, right next to the Florida State campus.
Did you go to school at Florida State for hospitality?
I did. I attended their Dedman School of Hospitality program for 2 years, and then I did my internship with Hilton, and I was with them for almost 4 years.
And so right out of school, or during school, were you working in the industry?
I was.
Okay.
Initially, right when I started the hospitality program, I began as a sales intern. So that was my first position in a hotel.
So why not go the sales route?
It wasn't for me. It wasn't the interactions with the guests that I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience firsthand the first impression that the guests receive when they come into the hotel. And I realized that actually it initially started as just helping out at the desk on the weekends when they needed it. And then I realized that's where I really belonged.
So how did you get the opportunity at the front desk?
The general manager sought me out, and I kind of had let him know that I wanted to move on to bigger and better things and get more experience in the hotel. So he put me down there initially, and then I began moving around other areas of the hotel, housekeeping and things like that at that property.
Okay, so we were lucky enough to find you 2 years ago, and you started with us as a front office agent?
No, I actually started as a laundry supervisor.
Great, tell me about that.
So I was actually the first laundry supervisor at this property in 7 years. They hadn't had one. And I think they just realized that that was an area of focus for housekeeping, that they really needed someone back there to reorganize and kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit because it had become very stagnant. So I came on board as a laundry supervisor, and I learned the ins and outs of their huge laundry department. And then from there, I began to expand in other areas of housekeeping and helping out with opening housekeeping in the morning and working with the room attendants and cleaning rooms, running the boards. Soon I began closing at night in the evenings for housekeeping as well.
How did that happen? How did you find those opportunities? Did you ask for the opportunities, or did they just present themselves?
They just presented themselves. And at this property, you know, it's really easy to be very flexible and get to know everybody that you work with. So I kind of began just helping out on the side as I could, inspecting rooms or learning some things, odds and ends of Opera and the system that they use. And then they taught me how to open, which is running the boards for the room attendants in the morning. And from there, we just kind of ran with it. I began opening a couple days a week. Then they trained me on closing and what that all was involved in. And then, you know, I think a manager transferred out. So then I just kind of became the night manager once that other manager had moved on.
And then how did we get you at the front desk?
The old director of rooms at the time came to me and with this position and asked me if I would be interested in it. She knew I had had front office experience in the past with Hilton, and I had kind of expressed in my, you know, evaluations and meetings with her that I wanted to get back to the desk and get back into that experience. So the opportunity came open, someone had transferred out, and I jumped at it.
And that was a front office supervisor?
Front office supervisor, yep.
So tell me about the differences between your experience in housekeeping in this property and your experiences at the front office.
They're so different, but so alike in different ways. The relationships with the staff is very different. So with housekeeping, it's a huge family. You're working primarily with the staff. You see them all the time, all day long. And you're really working hard to reach a goal together and becoming kind of a close-knit family. Whereas the front desk is very similar in that, yes, you're working very closely with the team for the same goal, but you spend so much time reaching out to the guests, building that relationship with the guests. So it's probably 50% of your focus is with the guests and 50% is with the associates, because you're front of the house, first impression all day long. So you're working on both of those relationships, I guess, would be the difference.
So when you started, you were in sales, and you mentioned that it wasn't for you because you wanted more of that guest interaction. Mm-hmm. So with your time as a laundry supervisor, were you missing that guest interaction? Did you still have any guest interaction?
I did not have as much guest interaction. No, I was definitely missing it, and I think that's why I was so excited to jump at the front office supervisor role. But I had another experience when I was in housekeeping at this property, And I was working very closely with the associates, the laundry associates, the housekeeping attendants, the other managers and supervisors, and the coordinators. So I learned a lot just working closely with them and learning from them and working alongside them. That was a fulfilling role as well.
Katie, how do you know at the end of a day if it was a good day?
Oh, it's just a gut feeling. And I don't like to leave the day until I have felt that I have resolved any issues or something I was uncomfortable with that happened throughout the day. Until that's resolved or I know that someone else is on top of it, I won't leave for the day. But it's a gut feeling. You know if you've been successful that day or if you've set your agents up for success for that night or the other managers.
So that can be very difficult, Katie, to leave when you feel comfortable and everything is taken care of, because at the front desk, there's always something. So does that turn into very long days, or how do you manage your work-life balance?
It can. I mean, honestly, you have to find that work-life balance, and I think finding that work-life balance is having the supportive team that you need, supporting each other, telling each other, hey, I got this, go home, it's under control, and just knowing that your team supports you if you decide to leave for the day and call it a day and say, I'll finish what I didn't finish tomorrow, and having that support. So I think having the support, both from your line associates and from other managers and higher up managers, is very important. Otherwise, you're going to feel obligated to stay longer because you don't want to give a bad representation of, what didn't get finished or things like that.
How much of your day would you say you really focus on taking care of your associates and you really focus on taking care of your guests? Like, where's the balance?
It's not a set amount each day. It's hard, especially at the desk. You have to be flexible and be willing to spend 5 hours taking care of the guest, or maybe it's your entire shift for that day because something happened. Or maybe it's a slow day, so you can really focus in on what your line associates are needing and their expectations, and if there's anything that you can do to assist them. But I think finding the balance it goes back to just knowing your associates and communicating with them and just checking in on them and making sure that they are set up for success. And if they're not, what can you do to provide that for them? Or knowing your desk and knowing the busy periods and knowing when you need to have a presence and knowing when you need to be there to assist with guest issues or questions.
Well, you set a great example every single day at the front desk, and there's some feedback here I want to share with you. This is from two of our guests. One was back at the end of February, and this guest wrote in a survey, "The manager, Katie Hoiles, is amazing. She went above and beyond to find me a room when the entire surrounding area was sold out. This saved me 3 hours of round-trip commute time if I would have had to stay in San Francisco. She always calls me by name when I check in. Clearly, she is the best brand ambassador Hyatt could have, and this is the reason I keep coming back." And then another guest echoes those sentiments and says, "I had an amazing weekend thanks to Katie at the front desk. I stay at a lot of hotels for work. I have never, all caps, experienced someone so proactive and thoughtful. Katie made our weekend. She deserves the highest level of praise and rewards. Thank you, Katie." I don't know if you remember these particular guests or experiences, but what?
Oh yeah.
How does that happen? How do you make a connection like that? How do you reach a guest and inspire them to go home and tell everybody just how great their interaction was with you?
I think what it comes down to is just the small gestures, like remembering their name, doing a quick scan over their stay and picking out a preference and kind of dialing in on that and letting them know that you know that information about them. Or the example, because I remember this gentleman, they were here for a dance weekend, and it was Valentine's Day, so they were bringing their daughter to a dance convention on Valentine's Day, so they weren't really having an alone romantic time. And I think I did something really small, like send up champagne. It's a small gesture, but it lets them know, hey, they remember me, hey, they're thinking about me, they really do care. So I think what it comes down to is just small gestures, calling them by name like the one gentleman said, and creating a difference and creating a memory that they can remember and that will make them want to reflect upon later, like in a survey.
How much of this care and how much of these small gestures just comes naturally, and how much of it can be taught or learned? Can you just take somebody off the street and teach them how to make these connections?
Absolutely not. No, and that's why it's so important, especially within Hyatt. You have to have that personal care inside you, and especially to do the job that we do, especially at the front desk. Anyone can learn a computer system, anyone can learn how to do a report, but teaching someone how to care for another person, it has to come naturally, it has to be an instinct, and that's why we are we do what we do because we have those natural instincts. So.
In a very, very short time that you've been with us, it's only 2 years and you've had a few different positions. In that short time, what are you most proud of?
The connections that I've made with guests and with associates. The associates at this hotel are like my family. I spend more time with them than I do my family, so I have a very close connection, very close relationships with everyone I work with, which is super important, especially if you're going to be successful as a team. And then the connections with the guests that I remember. Of course, at the front desk, you see all kinds of guests and you have all kinds of challenges. And I think as long as you're making those strong connections and memories with guests and talking about it later, bringing that home and talking to your significant other or your family and saying, hey, guess who I met today, or guess what I learned today. And those are the kind of things that keep pushing you forward to do this every day. And
what does the future hold for you, Katie?
It's a great question. Hyatt is definitely in my future, and I can't say where I'll be with Hyatt in 10 years, but I know that I will be with Hyatt, and hopefully I'll have hundreds of more connections to talk about. And I definitely love operations, so right now my future is operations, but who knows where I'll be 5 years from now. So.
Thank you.